Iron Stories, Episode 5, Tomb. Welcome back to another episode of Iron Stories. We ventured off with Nessana, an elf that has caught us after we have fought in the woods to some hounds or some wolves, and she asked us to investigate a barrow that is deep within the woods, or near the woods, but that seems to be the source of corruption of this dark forest that we're in. And we initially came to this dark forest to find a missing person, Kulan, that has been in there, and we found him, but he's dead. But in order to free ourselves from Nessana, we promised her, or we talked to her, and she said she will help us, or she would give us Kulan as soon as we helped her. So we're now more or less stuck with her and in this barrow, and this seems to be it's kind of something that's unsettling that Kaivan never seen before. We entered this barrow, and we encountered a bone walker directly, basically in the entrance of this thing, which is just a shambling skeleton of somebody that was buried here that just attacked us. And the whole area is kind of very dark and unnaturally cold, and there's a mist on the floor everywhere, that is very unsettling for us, and probably also Nessana. We don't really know much about her, or we can't really read her face, because basically, that's, I think, maybe something I've forgotten last time around. She is like covered, or she wears a mask all over her face, like it is with all elves, that they wear these masks above their heads. And so it's kind of interesting. So we're not really that great. We're doing not really that great, and we're just down there. I decided, just gameplay wise, since Nessana is there and she can help us, maybe somewhat reluctantly. We're basically just in here together. Maybe not that. It's an alliance forged out of necessity instead of friendship or companionship. So it's maybe an uneasy alliance. But I decided to at least let her help a bit Kaivan in his endeavors when he is down here in this barrow, in this crypts. And there is an asset which is called kindred, which normally is to be there, like it's like some sort of assistant or some sort of sidekick that's accompanying you, but she's not really a sidekick in that sense. But this asset still has a very interesting mechanic, and it is whenever I clash or battle or face danger, I get +1. So at least basically she helps me. So if I do clash, because if you remember, clash is when I don't have the advantage in a fight. So basically, I'm in. I can only react to something. She helps me there, or if I battle is basically the quick way of resolving combat, which I did not employ yet. And face danger, of course, is it's not. It's when I do some risky stuff or something like that. She basically can help me maybe get even kicked off quicker or not. So I think this makes sense that she's maybe helping me within this side. We didn't make any progress so far in this barrow. We basically entered the barrow. We descended from the forest entrance where we descended into, or basically down into the barrow there, and then we've basically, when we did go into the barrow, we at the doors, or basically we did go down, and when we had hit or the bottom or the first floor, so to speak, we encountered directly one of these bone walkers there. But otherwise, other than that, we didn't do shit yet, which is kind of interesting. So I would say, I mean, we don't have any choice so far. I mean, we're pretty rattled. So far, I mean, our health is not that great. Our spirit is basically broken, or almost broken. So we're 2 health at 1 spirit. We don't have much supplies here. Only on +1 supply. So we're not doing that great so far. Yeah, and it's quite an unsettling thing here. But Nessana is basically just telling us to press on. And what other choice do we have? And maybe there's also some curiosity within Kaivan's thinking, just what the hell is going on here? I mean, this unnatural coldness and darkness and this mist, this was also when he first entered the dark forest, he saw or he felt something similar. So it's a good reason to think, yeah, that's probably going to be the source of this whole thing. So what's going on here? It's kind of interesting. So he presses on. I mean, and he's also bound by his iron vow to help Nessana. So maybe, yeah, that's makes sense. So that he's now trying to progress further into the depths. So we're delving the depths further, and I mean, he's probably trying to do that still very cautiously. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense here to just to prance around here. I mean, the question is if we do it stealthily or if we try to do this with observation. And Kaivan isn't the stealthiest, so maybe he doesn't. I mean, he is more the instinctive guy. So it probably makes sense to do this with instincts. I mean, he's reasonable when it comes to shadow or to sneakily. I mean, that's where he grew up. I mean, he did go hunt, so to be somewhat sneaky is maybe not that bad. But I mean, keeping track of tracks of the animals, or making sure not to stand against the wind instead of with the wind, it makes or it's the other way around, I don't know. Or I mean, basically using the environment correctly is probably going to be more in his wheelhouse. So I would say we still do it with trying to. I mean, it's an unknown location for him. It's dark, so it would benefit him to do it stealthily. But I mean, he doesn't see anything, and normally when you do stealthy, it should be the other way around, so you can see everything and they don't see you. It makes much more sense. So he's probably going to be observing more, trying to leer out for the small things he can see. I mean, he has the torchlight that doesn't give up much light, and there isn't much radiance in here. So yeah, I would just say here we delve the depths. So at least we get a strong hit here for once. I think the first one we did a miss here, which the strong hit is at least good. So we get some progress, which is at least nice. So what does a strong hit do? And if I find an opportunity, okay. So it makes sense. So it's so now that he entered the barrow proper, or this burial site proper, he and maybe from the adrenaline rush he got from fighting the bone walker, his senses are now much more sharper. He can peer through the darkness a bit better. His eyes have adjusted somewhat. I mean, there's still the torchlight going on, which reduces this help of adjusting once to the darkness. But I mean, he thinks also he can see a bit further than he did before. Maybe the mist is receding a bit down here. So that's yeah, so that's maybe a thing. So I would say maybe see the opportunities here, that it seems that the mist is maybe receding a bit, which is somewhat inducing this darkness, or where you can't see that well. And he finds along the walls, so there he's now entering. So there's like stone walls, or there, I mean, the walls there are some stones. It's brick walls, not that very well done. It's just there to reinforce whatever they have dug out here. So there along the walls there is some other torches added there, and with some working around, he can lighten them up. So he can, as he goes along into this barrow, into this burial ground, he lights up more and more torches, which help a bit to recede the darkness from everything, so he doesn't get he's not impeded anymore by this darkness. So he doesn't get malices again on his rolls. And I have to mention that he gets -1 malice on rolling. So getting here a strong hit is really nice to get myself rid of that. So as he's going along, he's lighting up these torches that he finds along the walls. So he negates a bit this unnatural darkness that he initially encountered. It's still darkish and eerie, but now it's just this unnatural coldness that is happening within this burial ground. It's no longer the darkness, and as he passes along, he can see that he's going. It seems to be he's going like just small narrow passageways, and on one side there is just a wall where he can light up the torches that are held within in the walls, and on the other side there seems to be um, graves, but it's these just basically just alcoves where they just put in the bodies to rest, and they all have been, of course, over the years they seem to be in here very very long time. There's just the bones remaining. There's when they have been laid to rest with their weapons or with their clothing, the clothing has, most of the clothing has gone. There's maybe just some pieces of fabric left on the bones, and the weapons have all been have mostly been rusted. That's what he also saw when he fought the first bone worker. When he came in, he had this same, he thought, okay, maybe one of them just walked right out of this of this alcove, of this grave. I mean, it's kind of like in these old, or in these RPGs, like if you've seen or if you played Skyrim, it's these burials where they have this. I think in Skyrim was Draugrs that came out and attacked. It's somewhat similar. So this place seemed to be some sort of burial ground, and as he walks around, he can see they seem to be. I mean, they all have been placed in here for some reason. So there have to be. There has to be some sort of connections between all of those people that have been buried here. The question is now, of course, what is reanimating them so that they walk again? But just probably just some of them, not all of them. And why have they been buried here? And why is this causing this corruption? Or is the corruption causing them to rise? So, or is them just being here, just being basically these dead bones in these woods, be the cause of the corruption? So is it either the cause, or is the corruption causing them to rise? So that's something they need to find out. So yeah, so that's what he said. That's the opportunity I want to give them. So so that they don't no longer roll with this disadvantage, so to speak. So that at least is nice. So he can now cautiously move along. I mean, the whole shadow plan is probably going out of the thing. I mean, he thinks just by, I mean, if the dead are walking again, I don't think they can be surprised by going into the shadows. He's more likely to be surprised by them just standing up. So throwing caution against the wind, basically not going shadow here, and just trying to at least maybe find out if one of them is standing up before he again gets the jump on Kaivan. So he's basically just again trying to figure out, to look a little bit closer now that he has this additional light from the torches along the wall. He might be more able to look at those things, so to get a bit better the bearing where he's at. So he's delving the depths a bit more. Unfortunately gets a weak hit here, but well. So weak hit is okay, I have to roll on the table again. Ugh. So roll on the table to compare stats. So I roll a d100. I get a 78. So 78 on wits is choose one, mark progress, or find an opportunity. I would say I just go deeper. I don't find a opportunity here. Because I think I found the best opportunity anyway. So I just go deeper and deeper, and there's like just winding paths that seems to be winding further and further into this barrow. It seems to have maybe some sort of maze-like structure. So some of the times Kaivan got back to a room or to a passage where he was already, but since he's lighting up all these torches, he can see on some of them a bit further ahead, oh, there is light already at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, or at the end of this passage, so I was probably already here, so I can go along. And since he's mapping maybe a bit in his head where he has gone, and because he's aware of a bit better of his surroundings, he can try to find a way through this maze-like structure of these things. So there's like passageways to passageways. Sometimes there's just when he goes into the passage, there's just left and right. There is these alcoves with this skeletons in there. It seems to be massive. There's just a lot of this going on. So it's just interesting. So time goes by, they progress deeper and deeper. So I delve a bit deeper into the depths to see what I will find there. Another strong head. Oh, nice. So yeah, he's now getting basically his bearing right. He finds a bit better. So I would say I will roll now on this opportunity table, just for the heck of it. You locate a secure area. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so as he's progressing further, he comes to a room. So he goes to one of these passageways. There seems to be some sort of like a door or doorway. The door is maybe already, the hinges have been rusted. It's hanging a bit ajar, and as he's opening it, he's able to heft it open. And as he's entering this room, this room seems to be some sort of, I wouldn't say temple. It's bigger, so it's not these narrow passageways that he was seen before. It is more of a room here, and it seems to be that there is maybe some sort of altar in here, and it seems to be that this room is it is not silent, but it is calm in a sense, so you can feel a bit more calm in here. He is so and also I would say that where it was cold before, this room seems to be radiating some more warmth around it, and there's maybe an altar in there. There seems to maybe I could imagine maybe some sort of old tables. They maybe have been already been rotted a bit somewhat. So it seems to be some sort of place where the people were maybe hanging out, maybe doing some rituals to bury all these people, and then maybe progressing deeper into the barrow, as they excavated probably the earth here to lay all the people to rest. So I would say, yeah, it maybe makes sense. There's maybe also some. We will see that later. Maybe I can check them later. But Kaivan says to Nessana, it would be maybe make sense to make camp here. It's maybe not the safest, or it's I mean it's safer than everything else. We could keep watch we could keep watch in what's the word, in shifts, and we could also maybe use the door and maybe barricade the door a bit, so these skeletons or whatever they were, they don't seem to be much intelligent. They don't seem to be I don't think they're able to open the doors. So if we just barricade them, we should be maybe a bit fine. Well, not fine, but I mean we should be maybe safer. I was hurt. I need to get my my head straight here. So maybe just yeah, taking a rest here should maybe help us more than just going further just blindly. So let's make camp here. And Nessana agrees, strangely enough. It seems that she was maybe also a bit startled by this bone walker just getting up or getting to that close. So she may have been also she may also need some time off, basically. So yeah. So we make camp here. So make camp. I mean, they don't have much supplies, but yeah, well, it says here maybe when you rest and recover for several hours in the wild, but I mean, it's maybe some sort of wild. It's a weekhead. Okay, so what I can do, I can take 1 health, so I can basically heal a bit my wounds. I'm at 2 wounds, or I'm at 2 health, so maybe not that bad. The partake is basically the same, but I suffer 1 supply, so why should I do that? I could relax a bit, so I take 1 spirit, which maybe not that bad because I'm at 1 spirit. I could focus to gain 1 momentum, or I can prepare, but I add +1 to undertake a journey, which doesn't make sense. So I think the choice here is if I either try to focus my mind or if I just want to plain up heal. And I think just the place here probably makes relaxing harder. So it's maybe unlikely that he can focus here. So it maybe makes more sense that it just patches up some of his wounds that he got while delving around in the forest. So maybe makes sense to look around, or to heal his wounds a bit, to maybe cauterize them, or just clean them a bit around just to get a bit more healthy. So I would say let's ask let's ask the Oracle here. So I say so it's probably unlikely that I can focus. So if I I rolled a 92, so okay, so I think he's then focusing, so which means gaining a bit spirit. So he's trying to figure out everything that's gone around here. It just yeah, it's unsettling, but I mean it's not something. I mean it's something that he doesn't see before, that the dead walk again. He has seen broken, And that's what he also saw in this dark forest, that there were broken in there. So but the broken are more of in a sense that they're not dead yet. They're just basically people that succumb to the terrors of the Ironlands, that they were not strong enough, so to speak, to handle the Ironlands, so they get broken. So they became just unthinking husks of their former selves, and they're just wander around. Interestingly enough, they seem to have a prolonged life, so they seem to not be dying of old age that quickly. They seem to wither at a much slower pace, but they're still. I don't think you could call it alive, but I mean they're still living things. But these bone walkers that he encounters, they're dead, or they were once dead. It's basically makes sense because they're skeletons, so they have to be dead, and they are now walking again. So there's something that is lifting them, and he tries to make sense of that. But he thinks, okay, they're a quarry like any other. They're maybe slower than others, or they're maybe fight maybe with a more instinctive behavior than they would with tactics and thought, just because they basically don't have any brains anymore. So it makes sense to handle them like that. So he thinks, okay, I have to handle them like basically wild animals that are maybe not that fast as a wild animal, like a wolf or a boar could be. They're a bit slower. They have maybe more fearsome weapons in their arsenal. You seldom see an animal wielding a sword. So he has to be maybe more aware of that. But they're fighting instinctively, so he could maybe take that to his advantage. And while thinking about this, while collecting his thoughts about this, he is he feels a little bit more relaxed because of that. So he can, okay, they're maybe not that bad at all. So maybe I can see beyond this unnatural thing that they just live again, and power through that, not to be fearful of that. So yeah, that's what today camp here for some hours to collect his thoughts here. So and as he looks around the room, he can see that there is shelves and shelves, there's some shelves there with some books there. The books seems to have been have been rotten away. It's basically back then in medieval times, and I think still now, paper is a natural product and will succumb to withering and so forth. So over time, most of these books and scrolls have been withered away. I think maybe there's mostly scrolls in here. Books, creating books is a long process, and maybe that's not something that they would do here. Basically, in this is a burial ground. They maybe just have scribbled down maybe who's resting here, which would maybe make sense that they just kept the book. Okay, we have buried this person, buried that person. So he thinks about, maybe I can check some of these papers to maybe find a clue who is buried here. Why? If there's more information to gather. So after he's taking some rest, he gets up and is looking around a bit if he can find one of the papers that is still there. So he's gathering information, and he's doing that again with wits, because that's where he's good at. He doesn't get any bonuses. It's a weak hit. Okay. So weak hit. The information complicates your quest or introduces a new danger. Envision what you could ask as well. Yeah. So this is perfect opportunity. So at least take one momentum, which is not bad. So what Kulan finds out. Kaivan. I always say Kulan. I have two similar names. So what I envisioned with this thing here, which is really cool that I did this, that I got all this this save room. So he goes along a bit in this room, and he finds, sure enough, some of the papers or some of these scrolls are withered down, or that they just, as he opens them, they just crumble into pieces, and it's the maybe the ink on the paper has been, or is unlegible at some point. But as he goes further, he sure enough finds one of the papers that seems to have some sort more of information, and this is really cool because that is something, as I said earlier, I based this upon Holdfast Barrow, which is one of the pre-made dungeons, so to speak, in the book, and it has a really cool backstory. The backstory is basically way past when they first settled on the Ironlands. I mean, there were I think in the backstory it says it's like 200 years ago or 2 generations ago. I would say it's maybe 200-300 years ago. So it makes sense that this maybe have been long forgotten now in this long story. And since back then, history gets forgotten a bit faster because, of course, not that much is written down, or if it is written down, not many people could read it, which is interesting that then Kaivan can, but well, whatever. So what's interesting? So back then, I would say the first settlers. I mean, there were settlers on the boats that came over here that just fled whatever. Maybe that were the richer ones, maybe that could afford could afford basically the travel away from the old world, and the one that were not sick, of course. And they came with maybe, let's say, bodyguards or warriors, just, I mean, to make sure that wherever they go to, they could defend themselves and not just die instantly as they come, because it is a new land. They have no idea what's going on there. So it makes sense that they had some sort of like noble ship, and that just multiple like ships with warriors on it, and one of them in particular, I would say saw an opportunity. Okay, here is a new land. There is there's no kings, there's no royalty here, there's no aristocracy here. Basically, it is. I mean, it's somewhat in a martial law. We're here in an unknown land. There may be enemies around here that we have never encountered. Basically, the stronger survive here. And since we are warriors, we survive the best. So why should we keep working for these other people when we are basically the ones that are in power? So one of them in particular, which was Zan, Zhan, and he was one of these warrior captains, or maybe company captains, that was very power hungry and very he was very focused on getting the best out of this new life. So here I am in a new place, in a new life. Let's make the best of it. Let's make myself a king, or a chief, or some sort of let's put myself into power. Let's put myself at the top of the power. And so what was going on, that San then searched more people around, or skirted alongside people or warriors that had the same ambition as him. Say, okay, we are the warriors, we're the strong one, let's fight. So he assembled a warband and just waged war and cruel campaign over the whole, or over the settlements that were there. So he was just going through each of the settlements and, hey, okay, here I am the new leader. Do you accept or not? And if they said no, he just burned down and killed all the people, probably raped all the women in there, because that's what they did back then. So he became he became nicknamed San the Bloodied, because he just go over corpses and over blood to get his way, to get his to get to power. And the scroll that Kaivan finds is talking about this. So he says, okay, San the Bloodied was a ruthless warrior that killed a lot of people, and there was just one final fight against, because I mean, basically they came over to this new land, and he waged war a bit, or he waged his campaign a bit. He killed a lot of people in this time, but at some point, let's say, reinforcement or more people came from the old world to settle, and so these people then also banded together to counteract, or to counter San the Bloodied, and he was defeated at some point. So there was a very bloody fight here. So what they did, and what the scroll is saying basically says, San the Bloodied is entombed here in this barrow, and also the member of his warband were buried here in this tomb. Just basically seal them away, whatever, and then they also put the members of the warband that still lived in the same place. They just put them in there, basically. Okay, so you were on the wrong side here, so we put you in here, and we bury you alive. You're just dead. And I would say, now that Kaivan is looking a little more around, this save room is very special, because as you can see on one of the sides, which makes perfect sense now, that there is just a large stone, basically a heavy stone doors, it's double-sided door that is there, a stone entrance or door that is in this room, and he can see just along this this door, there seems to be they have to be carved in runes, and there are also like I would say warding rides or some sort that have been placed onto the door. But he can see that maybe, or warning rides, maybe some sort of seals, but he can see that time is, as always, unkind to such things. That he can see that time has broken away some of these seals. The runes are maybe not as complete as they were. So it seems that whatever has kept them inside here is breaking away, basically. And the stone entrance, or this basically, that's I would say there's a double-sided door here, which seems to be much higher than normal, but it has been barricaded by stone slabs, just that or instead of wooden beams that go across the whole door, or the whole entrance, there's like stone slabs that have been put similarly across there to just keep the doors closed so they can't be opened from the other side, which then makes sense, just because because they buried still living people in there, entombed there. They would stay in there, so they can't come outside. So they just did that. But some of them, maybe the holders where the slabs should have held have rusted away, or have seen the passage of time. So one of them is maybe a bit ajar, so it has fallen down. There's cracks in the walls just from, I mean, they're within the earth, so it's damp. So at some point, if you've lived in an old house or seen old walls, at some point when there is if it becomes wet or so, there's cracks along the walls. These cracks have formed through the stone. These stone doors have cracked away some of these runes that seem to be warding there. And he can see that the mist is coming out under the entrance. So basically, there's like a slim there's a little crack under the doorway where they're sifting this mist out that seems to have been permeated into the forest above, of course, and over time this accumulated more and more and more. So he is thinking, okay, whatever is causing problems is coming from beyond that door. And from the scrolls that he has gathered around, he can piece together this story of San, the bloody that has been entombed in here. And he could also gather maybe those people up there that he saw, those were maybe people that have been sent here to guard this. So these are guards that have been put in here, but they have been corrupted. So that's why one of them stood up again and fought as a bone walker, is because this corruption that came out of this tomb of San the Bloodied has permeated through and has corrupted one of these old skeletons, old guards, and has led them to attack Kaivan and Nessana as they came down the tomb. So clearly enough, whatever is going on comes from behind that door. So he gets one step ahead in the quest for Nessana to help her getting rid of the corruption. He at least knows, okay, whatever is causing the corruption in Holdfast Barrow and in the Dark Forest is coming from here. So yeah, we have to go down there to confront probably the remains of San the Bloodied and maybe kill him again to get rid of this foul corruption. And this seems makes sense now that this room is much more safer, because it's basically a room where the guards hang out during their duty, where they maybe also, like as I said, excavated all the tomb before they put everybody in there and sealed it. And this altar is probably basically built there. I could see maybe I have to find out which Norse god would make sense. Maybe Tyr, basically like justice, could make sense here. That he's guarding over this room here. So it makes sense that this is much more calm, much more warm, safe, and it's coming, radiating. It's counteracting the corruption that comes out. Is maybe a bit counteracted by this altar to this god. So it makes sense that it's going on more slowly than it should. That the save room may have been somewhat counteracting whatever corruption came out of the tomb, but it still wasn't enough to completely get rid of it. So Kaivan relates all this information to Nessana and says basically, okay, yeah, whatever is causing this is because of San, the Bloodied. And Nessana reminds him again, see, that is what iron does. Iron corrupts. Iron is poison, and you people have been poisoned by it way too much. It has poisoned you to the point where you now corrupt the land around it. You're responsible for this, so you have to get rid of it too. You have to live with your consequences and get rid of them. That's what you're here to do. That's what you promised to help me. So yeah, I would say this is again an excellent point to stop this episode and then to go further down this barrow as we go on. It comes together, I feel, more and more as we go along the story of Kaivan. Everything seems to be more and more connected now. It seems to come together quite well, and I'm really surprised by that. That all of these just small ideas, they fit together somehow, or I can make it work to fit together somehow, and it seems to come out and a reasonable story out of it. Yeah, I'm really surprised, and I'm really happy to do that. So I hope that you listen into the next episode as well, and so we see or we hear. I always say see, which doesn't make sense. So we hear ourselves, or I hear you, or you hear me in the next episode of Iron Stories. Yeah, hear you.